Chapter 191, The Dumbfounded Doctor. Mr. Zhang. Sun Ming looked at Zhang Han and was about to say thank you. However, Zhang Han stood up and waved his hand gently, then said, "All right, you can go home now, we're going to rest." Then he stepped towards the second floor, leaving behind Sun Ming and his wife, with appreciation and confusion in their eyes. "Hey, Dad, where is the boss?" Sun Donging, who just finished disposing of the garbage, asked curiously as he walked back towards the restaurant. "He is going to rest, let's go first." Sun Ming felt that his body was healthy. He took a deep breath and smiled gently. "Let's go, we'll have a thorough physical examination tomorrow morning," Sun's mother said softly. Her brain was a little dizzy right now. Seeing that her husband's condition was getting better, she was happy and uncertain at the same time. She couldn't be completely reassured unless they had another examination. After all, this was a matter of life and death. "All right." Sun Donging smiled and left the restaurant with his parents. After they left, Zhao Feng also said goodbye and left, after which, Zhang Han took Meng Meng to the bedroom to sleep. Just as he was about to tell Meng Meng a story, Xian called, "Zhang Han? I'm a little tired, and I really miss your cooking. The food out here is insipid." Xian sounded a little depressed. Xian was currently in Jiangyuan City, preparing for a show. Jiangyuan TV was a popular TV station at present. It focused on variety shows. The company did use some resources to arrange a program for Xian. However, the program had not been recorded yet, so Xian was forced to engage in various social activities, which made her a little bored. The first hassle was with some senior dignitaries who always hinted at hidden rules, intentionally or unintentionally. For situations like this, Xian just ignored it and relied on the sophisticated Zaf to deal with. As for the second issue, it was directly related to Zhang Han. After getting used to the dishes made by Zhang Han, it was like torture to eat the food here. At this time, Xian had just returned from a banquet. She was sitting by the window in a presidential suite, looking at the scenery outside. She was somewhat missing her daughter, but gradually, the image of Zhang Han's figure slipped into her mind. Finally, she couldn't help dialing Zhang Han's number, even though it was the middle of the night. "Then come back, there is no need to be a little star," Zhang Han said casually. You are not considerate at all. It's my dream. You've always been good at disappointing me. You are like a piece of wood," Xian said complainingly. "No, I just said you didn't have to rush about like this," Zhang Han said a little speechlessly. "I can't afford to be idle because I have to go on shows to promote myself and there are some company arrangements. I'm not like you, I can't accompany Meng Meng every day." "Then don't do it. Come back and get some rest. You can sing if you want to sing and do a movie if you want to do a movie. It's very simple." Zhang Han pouted his mouth and answered. He didn't agree with how busy Xian was. The fact was that he could write fine songs and top-level scripts whenever he wanted to. He had an advantage over ordinary people. However, Xian never talked about work with Zhang Han. Of course, Zhang Han did not understand that the success of a star also involved a lot of sweat, but he was not interested in understanding this either. Hearing Zhang Han's words, Xian smiled and said affectionately, "You always try to persuade me to quit. Could you show some serious concern for me? It's a compliment to call you a block of wood. It's not as simple as you think. I still have more than 2 years left on the contract with the Royal Entertainment Company, so I'm not free to do whatever I want. I have to follow their arrangements." "Then when will you come back?" Zhang Han asked. "It's still going to be a while." Xian thought for a moment and replied, "I have to appear on a program tomorrow and go to Shangjing the day after tomorrow. Then I will stay in Shangjing for about 4 or 5 days." Oh. Hearing Zhang Han's light reply, Xian was a little stunned and said discontentedly, "What, you don't want me to come back so quickly? Do you need more time to spend with that little sister?" "Of course not, you really have an active imagination." Zhang Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Zhang Han, you promised me if Xian intended to say cheat, but she paused and felt a little coy as her face flushed slightly. As Zhang Han and she had not been married, she was uncertain whether it was appropriate to call it cheating. I won't. Zhang Han answered with only 2 words. At this time, Meng was holding a white bear, which was about her height, and had been blinking her big shining eyes for a while. As she saw that the two had not talked about her, she pouted her mouth and climbed into Zhang Han's arms and said, "Hey! What are you two talking about for so long? Meng hasn't talked to Mama yet. Meng isn't asleep yet, then I want to talk to Meng," Xian said quickly after hearing her daughter's words. So Zhang Han handed over his cell phone to Meng, and the mother-daughter pair chatted for a while. It was almost 11:30 p.m. when they hung up. Nothing happened during the night. The next morning, Sun Ming did not go to the restaurant because he planned to have a physical examination. The Sun family directly went to the Southern District General Hospital for the physical examination, just as they were waiting in line. Sun Ming's attending doctor passed by at the end of the corridor, followed by 2 nurses. Inform Bai that he needs to take the surgery at 9 o'clock, the attending doctor said to the short nurse. Okay. The short nurse nodded and left. Then the doctor looked at the other nurse, thought for a moment, and said, "By the way, call Mr. Sun, the patient with advanced cancer, and ask him if he still needs chemotherapy. If he does, you can arrange it in advance." Okay. Hey, wait. The attending doctor suddenly saw the Sun family in line. He was shocked and walked towards them in surprise. "Mr. Sun, why are you in line here?" "Good morning, Dr. Wang, I'm going to have a physical examination today." Sun Ming smiled and answered. "Physical examination? Why do you need a physical examination?" The attending doctor was a little confused. For an advanced stage cancer patient who needs chemotherapy, what was the point of a physical examination? "I'm well now, so I need a physical examination." Sun Ming moved his hand and said, glancing at the doctor's expression. Then he pondered over it and smiled gently, then said, "Oh, right, I think there might have been some mistake in the hospital's diagnosis before, so I'll do it again." "Mistake? Well, if you want to have a physical examination, considering your situation, please take a special physical examination immediately. Come with me." The attending doctor took the Sun Ming family to the place where the special examination was to be carried out. He couldn't help thinking the Sun family's brains were crystallized, recovered from cancer. Wasn't this a joke? However, when he got the test result, the doctor's eyes gradually widened. "What?" The attending doctor was stunned. He shook his head, raised one hand up to his face, and rubbed his eyes a few times. When he looked at it again, the test result still hadn't changed at all. How is this possible? The attending doctor was amazed. "What's up, doctor? There isn't a problem, right?" Sun Donging asked. "Check it again." The attending doctor took Sun Ming for another examination, but the result was exactly the same as the first one. "Seriously? The data says that you are even healthier than an average person?" The attending doctor was dumbfounded. The doctor blankly took Sun Ming to do all kinds of examinations. However, the results showed that he was very healthy and without any problems. "Please come with me." After the examination, the attending doctor's hand trembled slightly. He spoke to Sun Ming in a low voice and took them to his office. "Did you really get treated? How was it cured? What medicine did you take? Who treated you? How could you be cured in only 1 day? This is a miracle. Who did this? Please, you must tell me. Please." The attending doctor grabbed Sun Ming, trembling as he said this series of words. His excitement looked as if he had won some kind of grand prize. Calm down, doctor." It seemed the doctor's reaction startled Sun Ming, but he was very happy and replied with a smile on his face. "Then you must tell me." The attending doctor said repeatedly. "Ahem, first, please loosen my arm." "Well, last night, we were at the seaside. Then Sun Ming began to tell the story. Without Zhang Han's consent, he certainly would not tell the true story. A ton of nonsense made the attending doctor dizzy, but as time went by, the doctor gradually calmed down. He asked many questions but still didn't get a clear answer. Finally, he sent the family out of the hospital with a wry smile. Looking at their backs, the attending doctor murmured softly, "This is definitely a miracle." Within the car, Sun Donging grinned as he drove. "Ha ha, Dad, it's really great. Your illness is cured. The boss is really amazing. Yes, without him, we wouldn't know what to do. We must make sure to return this favor to him. That is natural. He is the savior of our family. A hand given in emergencies deserves an even greater favor in return, but I don't know how to repay this kindness." Sun Ming said and began to think. He couldn't think of anything Zhang Han needed. The man seemed to have everything. Yes, how can we repay the boss? This is really a tough one. Sun Donging was also puzzled. Just stay true to your original self. Suddenly, Sun Ming's mother said with a slight smile, "It's obvious that Mr. Zhang does not lack anything. We remember this kindness in our hearts. If he needs help someday, we will be the first in line to help him. That's enough. If we deliberately thank him, maybe Mr. Zhang won't like it." "Ha, ha, ha, you're right. Let's stay true to our original selves." Sun Ming laughed, waved his hand, and said, "Donging, let's go to the mall and pick out some small gifts for the little princess." To tell the truth, Zhang Han's indifference made it so Sun Ming didn't know where to start. He also didn't know how to thank him. In this case, it made sense that he should just keep his appreciation in his heart and bring some gifts to the lovely Meng Meng as usual. If Mr. Zhang needed any help in the future, he would definitely be the first person in line to give him a hand. At the same time, a black Hummer was leaving Hong Kong International Airport for the Southern District. There were 3 people in the car, 2 men and 1 woman. The driver was a burly man with a crew cut. The first passenger was relatively thin and had inch-long hair. As for the person in the back seat, it was a woman in a tight suit with a ponytail and sunglasses. "I heard the target of this mission is an invulnerable guy." Suddenly, the strong man who was driving opened his mouth, with a hint of interest hanging from his brow. Chapter 192. The Security Bureau. The driver's muscles seemed to be ready to explode from his body at any moment, but he was still far from being able to compare to the figure of the transformed AI. However, compared to ordinary people, he was obviously much stronger. The man's name was Sen. He spent several years practicing obvious strength, mainly training his physical strength. He joined the Hong Kong Security Bureau 3 years ago. He had a hot temper and an upright personality, so he liked to solve problems with his fists, which allowed the man to become familiar with his colleagues in just a few months. The thinner co-driver, He Feng, was known for his rapid speed and was proficient in fighting. As for the woman in the back seat, she was called Leng and was proficient in tracking and assassination. She was relatively weak in close combat but better than her 2 male partners in terms of weapon mastery. When He Feng heard Sen's words, he smirked and said, "They are definitely just bragging, someone being invulnerable. What kind of master can be invulnerable? If it is true, then he must have reached the limit of peak strength and also be a master in skin-related techniques at the same time. It's impossible. How could such a master appear out of nowhere and even manage to kill a small leader of some underground forces?" The officials tend to exaggerate. They just want us to be fast and efficient. Do you really believe them? Sen's expression paused when he heard this and said with a stuffy snort, "What if it is true? The man who called us said that the man is over 2 meters tall and has the same build as an Asian black bear. He is extremely abnormal. If it is true, I will ask him for advice on how to practice." "You are really a fool. If it is true, the 3 of us are no match for him." They said that the strong man only appeared for a short time and then disappeared. He may have already left Hong Kong. We were just sent to investigate this matter. Don't get ahead of yourself. He Feng curled his lip and said, "Shut up," Sen said very spitefully. He couldn't understand why He Feng was so chatty, just like a little girl. No, it was even worse than a little girl. Didn't he notice that Leng in the back seat had been silent the whole time? Fine, let's talk about it some more when we get there. There was a surveillance video. Once we look at it, we will know what's going on. After handling this matter, Lawson, I'll take you to have some fun in a nightclub. Maybe you can even have a romantic encounter or something. In the end, He Feng smirked and showed an expression that all men understand. Hey, hey. And Sen grinned. As they laughed, the two suddenly felt a chill and quickly looked at Leng in the rear-view mirror. Her expression was still very cold and her eyes were blocked by a pair of black sunglasses, but the two could still feel her cold glare from under the sunglasses. Shame on you. Leng suddenly spat out a few words. In fact, she said this to He Feng, and Sen was originally a very honest person, but since he started hanging around He Feng, he had started acting more perverted. Xiaoyu, how about I also introducing a handsome boy to you? I heard that a new venue has been opened near our headquarters, and there are many. Fuck off. Leng shouted. He Feng didn't take it seriously. The three had worked on several tasks together and built a good relationship. They also knew that Leng would be upset for a while after every task because the two men took the spotlight during every mission. After driving for nearly an hour, this eye-catching Hummer directly parked at the entrance of the police station. Hey, no parking here, who are you? When a guard saw all three people exiting the car, he came over and spoke to them with a cold voice. Cut the crap, I like parking here. And Sen gave He Feng a stare and took out a certificate from his pocket. The dark words Security Bureau shocked the security guard. Although they didn't know the specific meaning of Security Bureau, they knew that the people of the Security Bureau had high statuses, even higher than that of the Special Forces. They were the same as senior administrators, so even their director had no right to reprimand them. Park here, it's all right. The guard nodded repeatedly and said. The three people ignored him and went straight to the office building. Shit, the people of the Security Bureau actually came here. They are really cool, amazing, that girl was so hot. The guard mumbled and took out his intercom to tell everyone else what happened. Finally, the three smoothly arrived at the director's office. Please sit down and have some tea first. The director will be back in a moment, the secretary said after serving tea for the three. Beauty, where is the director? He Feng took a sip of tea and asked laughingly. Well, the director, he is in a meeting and it will be over in half an hour, the secretary replied. Oh, half an hour, we can wait. Why don't you sit down and have a chat with us? He Feng looked at the secretary and said with a smile. His expression and behavior were normal, not the flirting type. He simply wanted to have a chat with her to pass the time. He Feng was a typical man, he liked flirting with girls but he didn't have the guts, he was simply too whiny when he talked. Most of the time, when it came to beautiful women, he only looked for those he really fell in love with. If he was really focused on seducing girls, regardless of the consequences, then he would not have been accepted into the Security Bureau. But even if he really did have some ulterior motives, the grim-faced girl next to him would not give him a chance. Leng took off her sunglasses, showing her attractive phoenix eye. She plucked her eyebrows slightly, then looked at the secretary and said coldly, Our time is limited, don't waste it by making us wait around here, please go call your director immediately. This. The secretary showed an awkward look. She asked you to call him, so you should do it, you just need to tell him we're here. And Sen waved his hand at her. Okay then. The secretary hesitated, nodded, and then left. The secretary jogged all the way to the meeting room. The meeting was still going, but when the director saw the secretary, he halted his speech and looked at her. The secretary walked quickly to the director, leaned over, and whispered, Director, there are 3 people here from the Security Bureau. They want you to come meet them as soon as possible. On hearing this, the director nodded his head, then closed the folder on the table and said, Please hurry up with the work I mentioned, That's all for today's meeting. Director, you haven't mentioned how to deal with the incident at Anlan Bridge. Deal with it how you see fit. After the response, the director quickly walked out, leaving the more than 10 people inside staring at each other. The director left in the middle of the meeting. This was the first time in nearly 2 years. Hello, I'm Xuanhuan. After the director returned to the office, he looked at the 3 people a few times and greeted them. Hello, Director Dong. Feng nodded and said with a serious look, Director Dong, please give us more details about what happened at the luxury mansion in New Moon Bay. The events at the mansion are really complicated. Dong Xiangquan's expression paused, just as he was about to continue explaining the situation, and Sen put down his teacup and said, don't waste time. Isn't there a surveillance video? We need to take a quick look at it. Let me warn you though, if there is not an invulnerable man in it, I'm going to be angry. Dong Xiangquan was stunned slightly. It seemed this strong man had a hot temper. Director, my friend is impetuous. Please forgive him. Leng nodded slightly and said. All masters were proud. However, as they were in other people's territory, there was a need to show some respect. Well, let's watch the video first. Dong Xiangquan didn't mind either. He directly picked up a laptop and put it on the tea table in front of the 3, then turned the screen to face the 3 and started playing the surveillance video. Holy shit, how could that lad be so bulky? When Sen saw Dai getting out of the little panda car, his eyes glared slightly, while looking at those explosive muscles, and Sen actually felt a little shocked. Don't talk. Be quiet and watch, Feng warned. He and Leng also looked stern. Laymen were overwhelmed by new situations while professionals tried to find out the trick. When they saw Dai, they instantly understood that this was not a simple matter. However, once they saw Dai begin to move, they were all frightened. When they saw that he was really invulnerable, their eyes widened. Shit, what the fuck? He's really invulnerable. Oh my god, this man must be a master. Damn it. The 3 of us are not even enough to plug his teeth. We will be doomed if he hits us even once. And that dog, what the hell is that? Is it even faster than I am? It's ridiculous to even suggest having us fight them. At this point, it was Feng who was staring at the screen and shouting, even though he had just reminded and sent to keep quiet. Even their captain only possessed inward strength. Obviously, the big man in the video seemed to be stronger than someone with only inward strength. Even if he wasn't, with his amazing invulnerable defense, he could not be taken down by an inward strength martial artist. It seems his defense has reached the limit of peak strength. Only our boss is capable of fighting with him. Leng took a deep breath and said with amazement, I was previously intended to have a fight with him. How could I do that now? His muscular body is twice as big as mine. And Sen said sadly. The gap was too wide for there to be any form of competition. Director, what is going on? Please tell us more details. The 3 of us can't intervene in this matter. 5 minutes later, Feng recovered his composure. He gulped down half a pot of tea, then looked at Dong Xiangquan and laughed bitterly. Ha ha ha. When the director saw the dumbfounded expressions of the 3, he was a little happy. Where did their pride go? However, the matter still needed to be resolved. Dong Xiangquan coughed softly and said, he is the reason why we contacted the Security Bureau. A friend of mine watched the video and predicted that the big man was an inward strength martial artist. He wouldn't appear so strong unless he has mastered the secret of body improvement. In terms of inner strength, he is not as appalling as he looks. However, they didn't know that this comment by Instructor Liu was only a thing of the past. Liu had actually been punched until he was dumbfounded by Dai on Mount New Moon. Chapter 193, 2 Little Obvious Strength Martial Artists. In fact, Dai and Instructor Liu were about the same in terms of real strength. They were both at the upper limit of inward strength. However, Dai was better in physical defense, so much so that he even exceeded most top peak strength martial artists in this regard. Little Hai was slightly inferior to Dai. probably at the medium level of inward strength, but its speed could match most peak strength masters. As for Zhao Feng, it was obvious that he was the weakest one. Zhao Feng was only at the level of obvious strength. He was ignored by the other 3 people present because they knew that any one of them could defeat him in less than 5 minutes. If the 3 of them went together, 1 minute would be enough. Dong Xiangquan actually quite understood their shock. When it came down to business, his expression became more serious. As you can see, Zhao Feng took away all the treasures from Tang Zan's estate, with an estimated value of more than 1 billion yuan, during the mansion incident. They also killed and injured more than 30 people. Although the impact was suppressed, the matter still has to be resolved. We checked for a few days and found some clues. I will sum them up in the following points. Dong Xiangquan stretched out one finger and said. First, Zhao Feng was originally one of our undercover agents. He took down Tang Zan, found evidence, and reclaimed 200 kilograms of drugs. His merits and demerits could be offset. However, he only left behind the evidence and drugs, without leaving behind any of the treasure, and he has not contacted us since then. Also, his strength has improved to the obvious strength level, so we suspect that he is following a martial artist and that his master is likely to be the owner of Meng Meng's leisure restaurant. He has been spending a lot of time there recently, and the boss personally made a move not long ago, with very decisive and ruthless methods. The boss is undoubtedly a martial artist, but we don't know what level he has reached. Second, the big guy disappeared somehow after leaving. This is very strange. We have searched for several days and found nothing. After analysis, there is a 90% probability that he has left Hong Kong and a 10% probability that he hid somewhere in Hong Kong. Third, we have to recover the treasures taken by Zhao Feng, which is also the reason we called you guys. After all, it is not a small sum of money. Suddenly, Dong Xiangquan's cell phone rang and he said, "Excuse me, let me answer this call first." After Dong said this, he turned around and exited the room. Less than 2 minutes later, he pushed the door open and came back, looking a little stunned. "I think there is one more point." Dong Xiangquan gave a wry smile and said, "Fourth, I just received a message that the owner of the restaurant has cured the illness of one of his customers. The disease he cured is cancer, in the advanced stage. Basically, it can be confirmed that the owner is very unusual and should be a master in the martial arts world." After saying that, Dong Xiangquan stopped talking and firmly looked at the 3 people. 2 minutes later, they finished absorbed the news. He Feng shook his head repeatedly and said bitterly, "Is there a 5th or 6th point? Please say it all at once so we can understand it all now." "There's nothing else at present." Dong Xiangquan shook his head helplessly. "Is this a joke? We can't handle it." He Feng frowned deeply, shook his head and said, "Why is he a restaurant owner? I am very confused. Where did these masters come from? He's invulnerable. There is no way to defeat him. We can't fix this. You aren't here to fight with that man. Your goal is to get back the treasures. If you run into that strong man, you can inform your boss and capture him, but you shouldn't be too worried. That strong man hasn't appeared since that incident." Dong Xiangquan said slowly, "That's the best solution at present, I guess." "Where is the lad named Zhao Feng?" He Feng asked. "He has been at the restaurant recently," Dong Xiangquan replied. "Director, didn't you say the restaurant owner made some moves previously? Is there a video of him that we can take a look at first?" Leng Yu asked. "Yes, wait a minute, let me look for it." Dong Xiangquan took the computer, found a folder, and clicked on the video. After seeing Zhang Han enter Chengxing nightclub by force, their expressions changed. They were not stunned or embarrassed, but relieved. "Isn't he just at the level of obvious strength? I am much stronger than him." He Feng chuckled and said, "Director, you really have a problem with your eyesight. You actually called him a master? Isn't he?" Dong Xiangquan was surprised. "Bullshit, I can take him down with one slap," An Sen said in a muffled voice. Let me ask you, has that big guy really left Hong Kong? Probably, he only appeared once and then disappeared, Dong Xiangquan replied. Then it's easy. Hun Sen picked up the teacup and drank all the tea in one gulp, then said, with regards to that obvious strength boy and the obvious strength little boss. The three of us are enough to casually topple them. Don't worry, we will recover the treasures for you. Then I will have to thank you in advance. Dong Xiangquan gently smiled and nodded his head. No problem. Anson stood up and stepped toward the door, then said, why are you two still sitting there? Let's go. You two don't have to do anything this time, I can beat them both. Well. He Feng glanced at Leng Yu and said, let's go then. After standing up, He Feng gave a wry smile. He still felt there was something wrong. The obvious strength martial artist, Zhao Feng, took away more than 1 billion yuan in treasures and walked around in such an open manner. It seemed that he had someone to depend on, but it was not clear if his protector was that obvious strength boss. If so, it would be a bit funny. You two, wait. Leng rolled her eyes at them, then looked at Dong Xiangquan and said, Director, have you had lunch yet? How about we have a meal together and talk about the specifics of the situation? Leng was the most sedate of the three. She liked to do things with full confidence, so she wanted to find out more about the situation. Only by knowing the enemy and yourself could you win the battle. When Dong Xiangquan heard this, he nodded directly and said, yes, I'll take you to the restaurant next door. Finally, several people went to the restaurant next door for lunch. At the same time, the Sun family also arrived at Zhang Han's restaurant. There were many people at the restaurant, especially at the gate. There were about 50 people gathered together, waiting in line. That was the effect brought about by Tasty Food of the World. Many of the crowd came for the first time in groups. After seeing the Sun family, the old customers pointed to them and snorted. See them, they are all members here. They bought 3 membership cards. They are so rich. What's up with the membership card? Some people were puzzled. Wasn't it a common thing to own the membership card of a small restaurant? However, the reply of the older customers left them stunned. What's up? Ha ha, you must not have read the board at the gate. Let me tell you, the membership card for this restaurant sells for 1 million yuan, and that's the discounted price. Now it has been restored to the original price. Hiss, 1 million. Oh, my God, how much is the original price? 10 million. Another woman dressed in an international brand smiled and said, didn't you watch Tasty Food of the World? As mentioned on that show, the food here is super delicious and it's over 10 times more expensive than ordinary stores. It also mentioned the price of the membership card. The woman who spoke was Lin Xu, the daughter of the Wang King group. She met with Zhang Han once. When she was bored at home, she saw the new release of Tasty Food of the World. As she lived in a cul-de-sac in the Western District, the distance was not too far. So she came over to have a taste of it out of curiosity, but she didn't expect there to be so many people in line. Damn it, it's so expensive, so fucking cool. The newcomer was dumbfounded. Ha ha, an old customer looked at him and patted him on the shoulder and said, don't be too surprised just yet. Once you taste the food, you will be even more shocked. And you will also realize that the members of this restaurant are absolutely as rich as a Jew. It is blessing to be able to enjoy dishes made by the boss himself. Although I haven't eaten the food, the aroma alone is so mesmerizing. Oh. The newcomer nodded dully. The Sun family stepped into the restaurant under the people's gazes. Sun Ming was carrying a small bag of cartoon dolls and small toys in his hand. Mr. Zhang. After entering the room, Sun Ming led the way to Zhang Han. Seeing Zhang Han, Sun Ming's eyes turned slightly red. He sincerely said, thank you, Mr. Zhang. Great grace doesn't need words, but I still want to say that Mr. Zhang. Before he finished his words, Zhang Han shook his head and said, there is no need to say anything. It's your own behavior that saved you. The fundamental reason was that Sun Ming won Meng Meng's favor. That was why Zhang Han saved him. If it had not been for that, if he had just been an ordinary customer in the restaurant, he wouldn't have necessarily done anything. Ha, 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 well, Mr. Zhang, I will surely remember it. Sun Ming smiled twice cheerfully. At this time, Meng Meng stood on the sofa and stared at the bag in Sun Ming's hand for several seconds. After confirming that there were some toys inside, the little princess said, "Oh, uncle, did you bring toys to Meng Meng again?" "Yes, here, see if you like them." Sun Ming went to the sofa and handed Meng Meng the small bag. "I like them." Meng Meng joyfully took the pouch and pulled out one toy after another, then played with the toys happily. When Meng Meng first came to the restaurant, she only had a few toys. However, in only 1 month, there were more toys in the restaurant than in Union Garden. Sun Ming shook his head and smiled. He turned around and took his family back to their usual table. "Hey, hey, hey." Sun Donging seemed to be smiling cheerfully. He looked at his father and said, "Dad, the company is gone. Am I free now?" "Bullshit, you will start a business together with me." Sun Ming smiled and rolled his eyes at his son. "I am really not business material." Sun Donging responded with a somewhat awkward look. Chapter 194, Menacing Demeanor. Ming, why not ask Donging to lay off a couple of days? He's still young and it's normal for him to be interested in entertainment. Sun's mother was in a good mood, so she defended her son this time. Sun Ming snorted softly. After thinking for a while, he shook his head and sighed with emotion, then said, "Because of this incident, I feel deeply touched, Donging. It was my fault for forcing you to learn software engineering in the past. From now on, Dad won't compel you. You can take part in the entertainment industry since you are interested in it." "Really?" Sun Donging's eyes brightened. Sun Ming said with a chuckle, "However, you can't muck about. Once you decide to enter this profession, you should take it seriously. I don't plan to start a company for the time being. First, because I don't have enough funds, and second, because I intend to learn about media and see if I can pave a way for you." The sale of Sun Ming's company brought him 150 million yuan. However, it took over 100 million yuan to cure his illness. The remaining 40 million yuan was not enough for Sun Ming to set up a company that he could operate. "Dad." Sun Donging was so moved that his voice trembled slightly as he said, "That's so kind of you. Well, I'm broad-minded now. From now on, you are free," Sun Ming said as he smiled. At this moment, Liang Menkai, her 2 companions, and Zhao Feng were sitting at the table behind them, chatting. Upon seeing Sun Ming's family's action, Liang Menkai whispered curiously, "Huh? They're expressing their gratitude to the boss. Did the boss give them some kind of special favor?" "Something special? What do you mean?" "No." When he saw Liang Menkai pouting with curiosity, Zhao Feng was struck by a thought, but he was a little speechless. "Menkai, you're imagining things. The boss has never made something special for anyone. Every time he cooks, you are always there." I didn't think the boss would. I like the boss so much, and he has no reason not to tell me when he makes something special," Liang Menkai said with a smile. "Don't think about him, Menkai. I'm going to have to keep my eyes on you from now on. If you dare to step out of line, I will stop you." Yu Qingqing shot her a glance. Liang Menkai had such a good background that there was no need for her to become someone's mistress. However, this girl seemed to have fallen in love with the boss. While she was staying with Liang Menkai 2 days ago, she clearly heard this girl muttering the word boss while dreaming. However, after hearing what she said, Zhao Feng looked at Liang Menkai with a different expression on his face and said, "Menkai, I follow the boss now. Give me your mobile phone number and I'll call you if the boss cooks some delicious food." "Hey, this is a good idea, but," Liang Menkai looked warily at Zhao Feng and said, "why don't you ask for the phone numbers of Qingqing and the sissy? Do you have designs on me?" Zhao Feng wrinkled his brow. He did not want to say that he had no design on her because he didn't want to tell a lie. Since he felt it was too honest and straightforward to admit it, he hesitated to answer her. "So what if he has designs on you?" Yu Qingqing snorted and said, "It's quite normal for him to have designs on you because you two make a cute couple. Zhao Feng, come here for a second, I'll give you Meng Kai's phone number, please make sure to save it." Yu Qingqing quickly read out a phone number that was easy to remember. Zhao Feng entered it and instantly called the number. After hearing the sound of Liang Meng Kai's cell phone ringing on the table, he nodded, smiled, and said, "Your phone number has been saved. Save it, save it." Yu Qingqing waved her hand vigorously and said, "By the way, her phone number is also linked to her WeChat ID, so you can also add it as well. I think you are a good man and have a chance at a relationship with her. Okay, I'll make sure to inform you when the boss cooks something delicious." Zhao Feng's eyes lit up and he quickly added Liang Meng Kai's WeChat. Even if he got her phone number, he could not call her all the time, so it was much more convenient to have her WeChat ID. Liang Meng Kai snorted lightly, then touched her mobile screen a few times and agreed to let him add her as a friend. Although she knew Zhao Feng might like her, she would not refuse to add his WeChat ID since she was familiar with him. After all, some of her friends had pursued her. Zhang Han was making sausage fried rice and noodle soup for lunch. He did not intend to eat the red sausages slowly because if they were kept for a long time, they would start to spoil. Therefore, he had to use them with each meal. Perhaps this batch of red sausages would be used up in 3 or 4 days. During these past few days, the normal customers, who were non-members, actually got to enjoy fine dining. Meng wanted to eat noodle soup at noon, so Zhang Han only made 2 classic dishes, namely, Sichuan-style potato strips and cucumber with garlic sauce. Then he took out 2 red sausages, cut them into slices, and put them on a plate. Meng was quite fond of eating the red sausages. In truth, during the years when Meng lived in North America, she was fussy about her food. She didn't like greasy meat nor fat meat. However, after meeting her father, she discovered that anything he made was really delicious. A short while later, Linx, who had been standing in line, followed behind a white-collar woman in her 30s and entered the restaurant. "Eh, is that her?" Linx had no memory of Zhang Han, even after seeing him again, but when she caught sight of Meng, she remembered this father-daughter pair. After all, Meng was so cute that it made an indelible impression on her. Just like in ordinary life, people would see a beautiful woman and instantly remember her. It was this moment that would remain in their mind for a long time, and they might even remember many years later that they once saw a very beautiful woman somewhere. However, Linx did not intend to go over to greet them. Instead, she peered at the surroundings and nodded her head secretly. Occasionally coming to such a restaurant, which was designed with a harmonious family style, gave her a good feeling since she usually only visited fancy restaurants. She knew the rules, that they did not take care of diners, from tasty food of the world. The program mentioned that diners had to get their own food and pay for it themselves. SH followed the white-collar woman inside, where she served herself a bowl of rice, poured a glass of milk, and sat at the white table. The instant she took the first bite, Linx totally froze. How can this fried rice taste so good? It really is as delicious as the program said. No, it tastes better than they said. It's so delicious. 10,000 images flashed through her mind. It seemed that the restaurant was going to conquer another batch of new customers today. Except for the people who had only traveled to Hong Kong, the people with insufficient funds, or the people with a busy career, everyone else basically came to this restaurant every day. Once a person sampled the food here, they would become a loyal fan of this restaurant. There was no denying that the charm of these delicacies could not be resisted, and they thought that Zhang Han, the owner of this restaurant, was high-end. Lunchtime quickly ended and the restaurant had quieted down by 2 p.m. At this time, right outside the restaurant, near the central office of the Southern District, Hick Unsent took the lead and exited. He burped and patted himself on the stomach, then said, "Let's go get the real work done. I can smack the two men, who only possess obvious strength, and send them flying." "You speaking as if you aren't also in the obvious strength stage." Leng snorted. "Even if I am at the obvious strength stage, I'm still more powerful than them. I'm not being boastful. If we're just considering strength alone, you two are no match for me," and Sen said while shaking his head. "I have 100 ways to deal with you, you stupid bulky man." He Feng curled his lip to show his disagreement. "Chief Constable, we will handle these affairs first." While looking at Dong Xiangquan, Leng raised her right arm, glanced at her watch and said, "We'll bring the two men back to the police station in about an hour and leave the interrogation to your department." "Okay." Dong Xiangquan nodded his head and reminded them, "If possible, don't use violence when you carry out this task. You'd better talk to them first and ask them to come to the police station of their own free will. I've heard that that restaurant does a lot of business. It all depends. You should wait until there's nobody. Don't waste our time, just wait for us." And Sen waved his hand disgustedly, then took the lead and left. They got in the big Hummer and Sen drove it. He was a little anxious as he stamped down on the accelerator. He wanted to defeat them heartily and bring them back to the police station. Originally, after seeing Dai's stature, along with his incredible defense and strength, he was completely frightened, but when he heard that the strong man had disappeared and his opponents were just two martial artists who seemed to have just entered the obvious strength stage, he was interested in fighting with them again. His testiness and eagerness made him want to get there as quickly as possible, so much that he even disregarded the red lights. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, "Papa, Meng wants to go to Mount New Moon." Meng pushed into Zhang Han's arms on the sofa while speaking with a childish tone. "Okay, let's go upstairs and change your clothes," Zhang Han said as he nodded. He could go to Mount New Moon and fetch some chickens to make stew chicken with potatoes. "Okay. Meng wants to wear clean and beautiful clothes." Zhang Han took Meng to the second floor and changed her into some sportswear. As soon as they came downstairs and Meng saw the sofa, which was covered with toys, she began squirming in Zhang Han's arms. "Oh, Papa, put Meng down. We can bring toys to Big Hai, Little Hai, Darjan, and Daha." Zhang Han chuckled and then walked directly to the sofa with Meng in his arms. He took out a plastic bag and unfolded so that Meng could put the toys she chose inside it. Upon seeing this scene, Zhao Feng sat back in his chair while holding his mobile phone and continued to skim through Liang Mengkai's friend circle. He was starting to suspect that Liang Mengkai was not an ordinary person. Since Zhao Feng's eye for detail was good, he could tell that everything Liang Mengkai shared was quite valuable. The necklaces, watches, and other jewelry Liang Mengkai accidentally showed in some photos were all high-end goods with high value. However, what attracted Zhao Feng most was a photo that was taken on a luxurious yacht with only 7 or 8 people. Almost all of the people in it were beautiful women. Liang Mengkai was dressed in a white bikini, which caused Zhao Feng stare absent-mindedly. How beautiful and sexy. Zhao Feng felt a little excited. The moment he looked at Liang Mengkai's photo, his heart thumped a little. While Zhao Feng was busy admiring the photos, a black Hummer pulled in at a crazy speed and stopped in front of the restaurant. It really stopped right in front of the gate of the restaurant. Zhao Feng frowned when he saw its position and examined it with a cold look in his eyes. Under Zhao Feng's gaze, 3 people exited the vehicle. The man who took the lead was of really tall, over 1.8 meters in height, and his muscles looked like that of a weightlifter. The other man and the woman were well proportioned, but Zhao Feng felt that they were somewhat outstanding. However, after seeing the expression on Ansen's face, Zhao Feng arched his eyebrows slightly. Why did they have such a menacing demeanor? Did they want to cause trouble? Chapter 195, Flowers and Leaves as Weapons. Zhao Feng stood up and stepped towards the door. and Sen took the lead and shoved the door open as he entered. After glancing around the room, he found out that the first target, Zhao Feng, and the second target, the boss, were both present, which caused the three people's eyes to flicker. However, after seeing the lovely Meng Meng, He Feng and Leng curled their lips. Since there was such a cute girl here, these two did not intend to get tough with them. But Sen ignored her. He stared at Zhao Feng and Zhang Han while speaking in a loud and rough voice. "You two, come with me." Hearing what he said, Zhang Han looked at them levelly. Meng Meng, who had been playing with her toys, glanced at Sen, then pouted and leaned against Zhang Han after sensing his aggressive attitude. "Who are you?" Zhao Feng arched his eyebrows as his face clouded over with an air of dignity. "It doesn't matter who I am, come with us and don't talk nonsense." Sen gave Zhao Feng a dirty look. "Are you here to cause trouble?" Zhao Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, emitting cold light. At the same time, his muscles tightened up and he prepared to make his move at any time. Seeing Zhao Feng's appearance, Sen became unhappy and sighed heavily. When he was about to talk, Leng quickly grabbed him by his bulky arm and stepped up to the side of Sen, then looked calmly at Zhao Feng and said, "We're not here to cause trouble. But we have some things we need to speak with you about. Get to the point and don't talk nonsense, or get out of here." Zhao Feng stared at the three people coldly. "Huh?" Sen was positively furious and was going to fight with him, but He Feng grabbed his other arm and held him back. "Let's talk first." Glancing at Zhao Feng, He Feng said, "We are from the Security Bureau. Zhao Feng, you know what you have done. Now, you and the owner of the restaurant need to come with us. Don't force us to take action." "The Security Bureau? Zhao Feng's expression suddenly darkened. He knew what sort of place the Security Bureau was, and he had heard Instructor Liu mention it when he had been in the Special Forces. He had said, compared with the Special Forces, the Security Bureau is a more powerful department, in which the staff are all true masters. However, as soon as Zhao Feng started to talk, Zhang Han, who was sitting on one side of the sofa, made a massive understatement. "I have no time." The simple words revealed a sense of indifference and disdain. No matter who you were and what your status was, he was not available just because you asked him to come with you. These words apparently stunned He Feng and Leng Yi, while Sen's face was suffused with irritability. Hearing his master's words, Zhao Feng instantly became solemn and directly showed them the door. "My boss said that he isn't available. Please leave." "Leave? Damn it, I'll beat you until you agree." Sen denounced him, then released a heavy punch towards Zhao Feng with his right fist. This time, He Feng and Leng did not stop him. Zhao Feng was not afraid of the heavy blow, but answered him with his right fist as well, preparing to compete with the man in front of him. The moment He Feng and Leng Yi saw this, a chilling smile appeared on their lips. Besides the captain, Sen was the most powerful man in their squad. This boy, who had just entered the obvious strength stage, had an exaggerated opinion of his own ability since he dared to fight against Sen. Under their gazes, the two fists collided. Bang! With a rumbling sound, Zhao Feng drew back 5 steps, while Sen only went half a step back. The outcome was clearly seen within a single stroke. Zhao Feng's eyes were imbued with astonishment and pain at this point. In the past, when he had simply gone around with the underground forces, he had almost no rivals in the southern district. Now, since he had been promoted to a martial artist, he felt his strength was on the rise. Perhaps it was a realm where the more you learned, the less you knew. "Obediently come with us right now, or I'll beat you up." Sen waved his fist in the air. His rough voice made Meng Meng slightly wrinkle her face. "Papa, he's so scary." Feeling a little scared, Meng Meng pushed hard into Zhang Han's arms and spoke in a low voice. "Don't be afraid, they're just ugly." Zhang Han put his left arm around Meng Meng and stroked Meng Meng's head with his palm, then chuckled. When he turned to look at Sen and the other two people, Zhang Han slightly frowned. In his right hand was a palm-sized doll with a small red flower on its chest. Zhang Han used his middle finger and forefinger to nip the small red cloth flower with 6 petals and pick it up. The moment when He Feng heard Zhang Han saying they were ugly, he became reluctant. He looked at Zhang Han and said in a blunt tone, "Who do you think is ugly, Skip and Sen? Why did you count me in? I think your eyes are. It's too noisy." Zhang Han spoke coldly. Before he even finished speaking, spiritual force instantly gathered in his body and entered the small red flower between his fingers. Then he gently shook his wrist. Suddenly, the small red flower shot out like a meteor, deceptively drifting over at a slow speed. All 3 of their faces changed at this moment. They could obviously see that the small red flower was getting closer and closer to them, but their bodies could not keep up with the speed of the attack. Under their gazes, the small red flower was getting closer and closer. They could even hear the beat of their hearts and their own breathing. Even before they blinked, the small red flower had already arrived in front of them, and Sen was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. Under Sen's trepid gaze, the small red cloth seemed to turn into a sharp sword as it raked his arm. He only felt a cool sensation at the place where the flower passed by. The small red cloth flower seemed like a weapon that contained coldness. Then, the momentum of the small red flower did not decrease as it quickly flew across the skin around Leng's neck and He Feng's right cheek. Bang! With a very soft sound coming from the rear side, the 3 people turned their heads at a loss. They saw the small red flower piercing through the glass of the gate and flying 2 meters away. After its energy dissipated, it turned back into a normal red cloth flower and slowly fell to the ground. Ah? Sen did not know what was going on as he stared with huge round eyes and a doubtful look. He hastily glanced at his arm, only to find that his clothes had been slashed and he had a very shallow cut on his skin. Leng touched her neck and found that there was a small painful cut on it. However, after looking at her fingers, she realized there was no blood. As for He Feng, he quickly took out a mirror and glanced at his cheek. He was relieved when he noticed that it only left a red mark. In that instant, all 3 of them froze. The scene began to replay in their minds. Could a piece of cloth cause the same amount of damage as a hidden weapon? The 3 of them shivered and their eyes widened. Looking at each other, they all saw the obvious amazement in each other's eyes. Poof! He Feng choked on his saliva and sprayed it all over Sen's face. He cried out involuntarily, "Flowers! Flowers and leaves can be used as weapons? What? A chi strength master?" Leng trembled while feeling unwell. Oh, my God! Finding that he was too weak to stand, Sen directly plopped himself down on the ground, stunned. He Feng and Leng looked at each other again. They were all at a loss this time. Didn't their superior tell them that the owner of the restaurant was just an obvious strength martial artist? An obvious strength martial artist? Could an obvious strength martial artist easily turn a small red flower into a sharp weapon that could hurt them? The ability to hurt people with flowers and leaves typically belonged to chi strength masters. They really wanted to start cursing. Why did he cheat them in this way? That was really a scam. They would die if they infuriate a chi strength master. What should they do? At this moment, all 3 of them, including Leng, who had always been calm, wanted to cry. They did not know what to do. 2 of them were standing like blocks of wood, while one was sitting on the ground like a bear, without saying a word. Zhang Han, however, did not intend to wait for them. He picked Meng Meng up with one hand and took the toys with the other, then got up and walked towards the door. Zhang Han's move frightened the 3 people. They all looked at Zhang Han and were immediately covered in cold sweat. Oh my God, is he going to attack us? What should we do? A chi strength master can defeat us with a simple wave of his hand. It was pathetic. They did forget to look up the almanac when they went out. The obvious strength martial artist, who could easily be defeated in their mind, was a hidden prehistoric Tyrannosaurus Rex. Damn it, even if their captain came, all he would just be serving himself up on a platter. Chi strength masters were formidable and unrivaled in any place. They adopted such a condescending manner that average people like them could not see. Although they met one master today, they offend him. However, at this point, Meng started to talk, and the childish words of the little princess eased their tension. She said, "Papa, why aren't they moving? The way they are looking at you is strange. They must be feeling ill." Zhang Han chuckled at Meng, then glanced at the three people calmly. Ignoring them, he walked straight past them and went out. Zhang Han noticed them when they drove up to the restaurant and guessed they were official personnel, judging from their postures. Zhang Han, however, was not aware what department were they from. Using the small red flower was also to show them the strength of a peak strength master. Zhao Feng's words made Zhang Han realize that a peak strength master was equal to a martial artist at the chi refining stage, and he was already a master with some arrangements in this city. Moreover, Zhang Han also knew that the authorities were bound to take action once Zhao Feng and Dai took those treasures. Zhang Han could comprehend all this in a single instance, but he did not care much. As long as he displayed his skill and showed them his strength, then asked Zhao Feng to talk to them, everything would turn out all right. Besides, it did not matter if the authorities found the masters who could defeat him, because Zhang Han attached no importance to those treasures. If the authorities were willing to compromise, their staff would discuss the details with Zhao Feng. Although Zhang Han paid no attention to other things, he understood them very well in his heart. Moving back to the point, under the gazes of the three people, Zhang Han sat down inside the seemingly ordinary panda car and slowly drove away. Whoops! As soon as the Tyrannosaurus Rex walked away, the three exhaled deeply. Chapter 196. The trio are dumbfounded. That really freaked me out. And Sen wiped his forehead, only to find it was covered with sweat. That was so terrifying. He was actually a chi strength master. My God, there's such a powerful person here. He Feng and Leng murmured softly. Obviously, the sudden appearance of a chi strength master completely threw them into confusion. In their view, even if their captain came here, he would probably be scared. Fortunately, the chi strength master did not hurt them, and the small red flower was just a warning. They were just thankful inwardly that he did not lose his temper, otherwise, the consequences would have been too ghastly to contemplate. As they were busy thinking about pointless things, a cold voice rang from the side. "Didn't you want to take us away? What do you want to do now? Tell me." The three of them were all stunned. They were so shocked that they even forgot about the man beside them. Zhao Feng understood why they were so absent-minded. Their feelings were obviously in turmoil. No. And Sen, who had always been straightforward, looked at Zhao Feng, with a guilty expression, and said, with a flattering voice, "We, just came to ask you to assist us with some inquiries. We simply want to ask about some details." That's right. Just a written interrogation record. Yes, we were just ordered to get a statement and record some information. Brother, don't misunderstand us, we have no malice at all, echoed He Feng quickly. Leng Yi, however, compressed her mouth, and said nonchalantly after a long time, "I don't know if it is convenient for Mr. Zhao to make a statement for the record now. If it is not convenient for you, we can go back first and contact you when you have time. Go ahead, ask whatever you want to ask." Seeing the three people's passive attitudes, Zhao Feng felt very happy. Previously, as a special soldier, he had to salute when he met personnel from the security bureau, but now he was a martial artist. Although he could not defeat the people in front of him, they dared not say anything because of his master. The feeling brought by this contrast was really refreshing. However, after hearing his words, the three people felt a little uncomfortable. They had planned to take Zhao Feng and his boss away and had never thought of asking them questions. "Well, big brother, aren't you tired of standing? Sit down and chat with me." And Sen stood up and patted his bum as he spoke to Zhao Feng with a smile. After Zhao Feng sat down, and Sen, whose heart was still beating violently even now, was sitting on the opposite side, he said with an anxious face, "Is the owner of the restaurant a chi strength master?" And Sen's voice had been very tough, but now it was very gentle. What do you think? Zhao Feng slightly raised his chin, putting on a somewhat bohemian expression, as if he were very formidable. If Liang Mengkai saw Zhao Feng's expression, she would probably laugh at him and deem that he was suffering from adolescent delusions. He's so awesome, he's definitely a master, what a powerful man, ha, ha. Sen did not know what to say as he stared helplessly. As for Leng, after hearing what he said, she gently coughed and said, Zhao Feng, we have a task at hand and just want to inquire about the situation. I hope you can help us out. After all, you were also a member of the army before. Please understand. I will answer if I can. Zhao Feng nodded his head slightly. In truth, we want to ask for the details regarding the situation with Tang Zan's mansion. Sitting beside Sen, Feng looked at Zhao Feng with a solemn look. After forming some sentences in his mind, he said, that, after all, created quite a stir. That's why we, the staff of the Security Bureau, were sent here. We have already learned some information from Director Dong. This matter was held back by him and Instructor Liu, although Tang Zan and his men deserve to die. Get to the point. Leng interpreted him and said bluntly, who's the bulky invulnerable man? Can you answer this question? Generally speaking, they would have questioned him violently, but now, they dared not. A chi strength master was like a mountain that held them down with great pressure. Forget about asking about using violence to get answers. They actually had to add, can you answer the question? Judging from their attitude, everyone knew the status of a chi strength master. I'm familiar with him, but I can't tell you about him. If you want to know, you will have to ask the boss. Zhao Feng replied, then shook his head. His words stunned the three people. How would they dare to ask his boss? Leng had no choice but to give up on this question. After thinking for a while, she asked again, can you tell us whether it was your decision to destroy Tang Zan or? It's my boss's idea, but also mine, Zhao Feng responded. Then, regarding the treasures if you want to take the treasure back, you will have to speak with the boss. I can't make a decision on that. Okay then, I have no more questions. Leng gave a wry smile. He could answer all their questions by simply saying please ask the boss. You might not have any questions. But I do. Sen said excitedly with round eyes, brother, where's your boss from? Who taught him? Does he need more disciples? And, what do you think of me? Is there any chance I could become his apprentice? It's okay for me to serve the guests at ordinary times. I'm good at mopping the floor and possess great strength. I can do all the dirty work. My only desire is to acquire more power. Hearing Sen's words, Feng and Leng hung their hands in shame and closed their eyes. They were both speechless. It was really a shame. He was acting shamefully. Even Zhao Feng's mouth slightly quivered as he replied. My master is a mainlander, who is the leader of his organization. By means of his identity, he doesn't need to look for someone else as a patron, because he's his own support. As for accepting disciples, I don't think my master has any interest in this aspect, but you can ask him. Only after this remark did they realize that Zhao Feng was already a disciple of that chi strength master. This showed that Zhao Feng's future would be smooth and promising. Their glances at Zhao Feng all changed at the thought. Oh, how do I dare to ask him? I spoke too loud before. Did I annoy him? Sen scratched his head and said. Hearing his words, Zhao Feng said with a chuckle, I don't know if the boss was bothered by it, but I know that if you disturb Meng, he'll be very unhappy. If he becomes unhappy, you will probably end up with the same fate as Scorpion and Tang Zan. Therefore, if there is anything in the future, you should contact me directly instead of disturbing my master. Okay, let's call it a day. I'm sorry to trouble you, Leng said quickly, then stood up and went outside. Hey, I haven't finished chatting yet. Sen twisted his mouth and sighed, looking at Zhao Feng as he said, brother, please apologize to the boss for me. I'm really sorry for being so loud earlier. Next time I'll definitely correct it. And, ahem, come on, we're leaving right now. Sorry to disturb you today. Go. Ah, why are you pulling me? I haven't finished speaking yet. And Sen was dragged out by He-Feng. After He-Feng set him directly into the back seat of the Hummer, Leng hastily started the car and left. Wonderment and a lingering fear persisted along the way. After they returned to Dong Xiangquan's office, bang! And Sen was very angry and flung open the door. "Chief Constable, you totally cheated us." And Sen said with great indignation, "What's up?" Dong Xiangquan was somewhat shocked. The owner of the restaurant is definitely not an obvious strength martial artist, He-Feng said with a wry smile. He's a chi strength master, a tough character who is even more powerful than the bulky guy in the video. We almost didn't get to come back today. That's right. Leng added with an indifferent expression, it's only thanks to the boss's daughter, otherwise, he might have beaten us to death because of Ansen's rude remarks. Is he so terrifying? Dong Xiangquan felt surprised all of a sudden and asked in a hurry, is he really a chi strength master? Is it true? Of course it's true. Hiss. This matter turned into trouble. You should inform your superior immediately, Dong Xiangquan said hastily. We have already notified them on our way back. He-Feng shook his head repeatedly. He remembered the tone when their captain answered the phone. Who? What? A chi strength master? Poof. Are you sure? Really? My God, we are in a jam. Curb your temper and don't take any rash actions. I'll inform the superiors immediately. It was evident that the emergence of a chi strength master was a problem that none of them could deal with. Figuratively speaking, their position was equivalent to traffic police. Martial artists with inward strength were equal to common police. People with peak strength were equivalent to armed police, and masters were the same as special soldiers. The martial artists at higher levels could not be seen in normal times. Since a chi strength master was involved in this matter, they had to inform their superiors and wait silently. Did you ask about the details? Dong Xiangquan asked. What did Zhao Feng say? What did his master say? Did they accept or refuse? Not at all. And Sen said angrily, look at his face and her neck, we're all injured. After we made him unhappy, we were scared to ask him anything. Dong Xiangquan sighed gently. But we briefly asked Zhao Feng about some details. Leng Yu interrupted him and said, he said that he was a disciple of the boss and the treasure was in their hands. If we want to take it back, we need to ask the owner of the restaurant. If we want to inquire about something else, we should ask the boss as well. Zhao Feng did not say more. Since he couldn't make a decision, we couldn't ask him. So now we have to wait for instructions from our superiors and see how they want to handle it. It's really troublesome. Dong Xiangquan sighed again. Meanwhile, at the TV station in Jiangyuan City, floating music was about to start recording. At this moment, Xian and Zuf were backstage. Xian had just put on light makeup and was taking a break in the lounge. Elder sister Yan, I saw a person who looked like Muru outside just now. She went to the lounge in front of us, Zuf said doubtfully. Chapter 197, compete on the same stage. Muru? Xian was slightly astonished. Her information flashed into Xian's mind. Muru had started out on a music variety show a few years ago and had developed over a period of time, releasing several popular albums. However, Xian had emerged unexpectedly at that time and overtaken Muru in some programs. Xian still remembered the resentment on her face. Word of mouth suggested that she had faded from the public eye because she had married. When she restarted her career 3 years later, she explained at the press conference that she was single. It was not easy for a star to come back, so she was not very popular at the time and underwent an average development. Eventually, after half a year of working hard, she issued 2 popular songs, which made her somewhat successful. Xian knew these things about Muru, but she did not know why she was here. While Xian was busy pondering this, someone gently knocked on the door a few times. Then, a man wearing a pair of glasses entered the room with a file in his hand and said, "This is the process of today's program. Please take a look and make preparations." You will be on stage in about 10 minutes. Okay. Xian nodded her head and took the document. After delivering the document, the man with a pair of glasses immediately left. The program schedule was made in detail, briefly containing the kind of questions which the host would ask during the interaction so that she could think about her answers in advance. However, as she looked at the schedule, Xian arched her eyebrows. "What's the matter, elder sister Yan?" Zif leaned in with curiosity. After glancing at the program, her face fell and she said angrily, "Are you kidding? Perform on the same stage with Muru? She already has so many programs. What about you? It's obvious that they want to use you to make her stand out even more. Why are they doing this? I'll ask them." After she finished speaking, Zif stood up and put on an angry look. Judging from the process of the program, she understood that this program was mainly to show off Muru to the audience, while Xian was only here to make her stand out more. One was Muru, a former B-list singer, and the other was Xian, a popular singer who almost won the title of Best Actress in the entertainment circle. The program was apparently trying to tell people that the star who had been slightly unpopular was much more formidable than the one who had been popular in the past. It was definitely an inspirational story similar to a counterattack. Zif was totally outraged. If this program invited two stars to compete on the same stage every time, she would not say anything. However, this program always invited one special guest at a time. Why did they invite two this time? Under these circumstances, anyone would be angry. Xian grabbed Zuf's wrist and looked at her with sparkling eyes. She twisted her lips for a few moments before nonchalantly saying, "Even if they deliberately arranged to highlight Muru's success but using my misery, so what? I'm already here, it's no use talking to them." Having said that, however, Xian still said it in an inevitably depressed tone. "They're so unmanageable. A group of mercenary people, damn it." Zif sat back in the chair angrily and spoke while gritting her teeth. "I don't think it's the TV station's fault. It's impossible for the producers to do such a thing. Muru is an entertainer from a different company, so they can't interfere with the affairs in Hong Kong. I believe it is Makey who is playing this trick. She simply doesn't want you to have an easy time. Is she taking revenge on you on purpose? I don't think she would do that." Xian sighed softly. No matter what the reason was, it would not change the reality. She was no longer a popular star who was at the top of her career. Her current status was similar to that of a C-list artist. If she threw a tantrum in the face of such treatment, she would be left out in the cold by her company, not to mention incurring the displeasure of the sponsor. "I thought it was kind of the company to arrange two programs. I never imagined they would do something like this. Don't sigh." Xian shook her head gently and said, "There's a saying that bare feet are better for walking than shoes. Since I'm in a dark place right now, it's the same for me no matter who I compete with on stage. There's a singing part in the program and I don't think I will lose. Moreover, we will benefit from having Mura here because of her current popularity. This program has maintained high ratings, so we don't need to benefit from her association. In this case, however, we have no choice. Elder sister Yan, you should sing your first hit when you compete with her later. No matter who you compare with, we're not afraid, hum." Zif calmed down and cheered Xian on. It was close to show time, so a staff member knocked on the door and came in to bring the two backstage. "Just wait here for a while," the staff said flatly. This position was over 20 meters away from the exit, where 7 or 8 people were surrounding a person who was sitting on a chair. The person was Muru, who was currently very popular. Wearing heavy makeup, a purple dress, and an overcoat, Muru had a proud expression on her face. Even when drinking water, she asked the others to hold the cup for her. While drinking water, Muru casually turned and looked at Xian and Zif. She squinted slightly, revealing a look of disdain. Without bothering to look at them any longer, she turned her head back and sat there proudly, waiting to go on stage. What a poser. Looking at her behavior, Zif grunted to herself. She did hate such contentious people. Muru demanded to sit while waiting, Even though she only had to wait for 2 minutes behind the curtain, she was like an old man. Soon, the music for the beginning of the program began to play on the stage, followed by the passionate voice of the host, Xin Xin. Hello, audience, friends, welcome to Floating Music. For this issue, we have invited a heavyweight musician. Who is she? I think some friends have already guessed by virtue of the background music which was played just now. Let's have a round of applause as we welcome the popular entertainer Muru. With words of welcome, hundreds of audience members started to clap, causing a thunderous applause in the stands. It's time to go on stage. At this moment, Muru stood up with an indifferent expression and glanced at the agent beside her. The agent quickly took off her coat and tidied up Muru's clothes. Then Muru stepped onto the stage with high heels. When entering the stage, Muru's face instantly changed, showing a very enthusiastic smile. Hello and welcome, Muru, please have a seat, the host said with a smile. Hello, host and audience. Muru greeted with a chuckle, then sat down. Muru, I heard. What followed was the interaction time between the host and Muru. They talked for about 10 minutes, and Muru did not display any signs of stage fright but looked like a strong woman, who made everyone feel her power and presence. Confronted with some tough questions, she could always fight back inadvertently, barely allowing the host to ward off the blows. Muru was originally a very sleek person. Furthermore, having experienced the edification of a rich and powerful family for several years, her current attitude was natural and graceful. It was impossible for people to fault her performance. The interactive session finished quickly, at which point the host stood up again and said, Today, we have also invited another mysterious guest, who was once very popular. I can give you a hint. Her first hit is called Love in a Fallen City. Does this name ring a bell? Well, please give a warm welcome to Xian. Xian was standing at the entrance of the stage. After catching sight of Xian, Muru's agent stepped aside while making remarks about her in a low voice. Xian, however, after hearing the host's words, closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had not gone on stage for several years. Xian opened her eyes and became as calm as usual. However, a gleam of extraordinary splendor was glittering in her beautiful eyes. Hello, Xian, please have a seat, the host said with a smile. Hello, host, thank you. Hello everyone, long time no see. Xian gently nodded and smiled with corners of her mouth. As soon as she entered the stage, nearly 100 audience members became silent. Looking at Xian's beautiful face, they remembered this good-looking entertainer who was once a popular star. Not only the audience, but even the host stared at Xian for a long time. Then he sighed with emotion. There is a saying that goes, time and tide wait for no man. But, Xian, you are still so beautiful that age sits well on your face 5 years later. Thank you. Xian responded. By the way, 5 years ago, I don't know why you. The program had left only 3 minutes for Xian to interact with the host. However, seeing the audience marveling at Xian's face, Muru, who was standing on one side, felt a twinge of envy and she did not want to give up this time. Before the host finished speaking, she put a surprised expression on her face and interjected. Hello, elder sister Xian, I didn't expect to be on the same stage with you. I'm so lucky. I used to be a fan of yours. Hello, I have listened to the songs in your album recently, they sound very good. Xian smiled and nodded in reply. Compared with elder sister Xian, I'm still a junior. I'm so happy to be praised by you. Giving a false smile, Muru said in a softer tone, That's right. The host said appropriately and asked Xian some questions. They interacted for 2 minutes. During this period, the 3 senior people who evaluated the songs sat quietly by the side. They all looked at Xian significantly. After the interaction ended, the program proceeded to the next section, the host said with a smile. Next, let's let our special guests sing a song respectively, then the 3 instructors will evaluate them. In the past, we chose other people's songs for the guests. Since the two guests are going to compete against each other on the same stage, it's better to let them sing their own songs. So who will sing first? While speaking, the host looked at Xian and Muru. After thinking for a moment, Muru said with a smile, "Elder sister Xian, do you want to sing first or second? It's up to you. I'll sing first then. After all, elder sister Xian is my predecessor. The real star should go last." Muru said hypocritically. "Well then, Muru will sing the first song." The host smiled and said, "Which song would you like to sing, Muru?" Chapter 198, Heartbreaking Evaluations. "Then I will sing Unexpected Encounter." Muru nodded softly and said. It was one of the two popular songs that made her famous. Facing Xian, who was much more talented than her at singing, she had no choice but to use her signature song. But, oh Xian, no matter what song you sing, you will be embarrassed later. After that, I'd like to see if you can still be so pretentious. Muru laughed coldly in her heart. She had a very close relationship with one of the three judges and received some inside information from him, so she was quite confident in regards to the competition. At the same time, she also wanted Xian to listen to her singing. She was no longer the young newcomer who was crushed by Xian. Now, Xian didn't even qualify to bring shoes for her. All Xian had was a beautiful face that made people jealous. It wasn't long before the stage was vacated for Muru. She grabbed the microphone and tested the sound. After that, the music and lights began to work. She started to sing. As her mind was a little restless, she subconsciously raised the pitch of the opening lyrics a little higher and didn't realize it until several stanzas later. Her heart beat fast and she quickly composed her mind and began to sing earnestly, but when she was about to sing one of the high pitches, she suddenly realized that she didn't have enough breath for it. What should she do? When her voice was about to break, Muru used her quick wits and intentionally tripped on her high heels. Ouch! Her body collapsed to the ground. What happened? The host was frightened and rushed over to help her up. "I didn't step firmly and sprained my foot." Muru frowned slightly and said, "How do you feel? Do you want to continue, or should we send you to see a doctor?" The host asked with concern. "It's okay, I'm better now, the sprain is not serious." Muru moved her ankle a few times, pretending to ease up, and then looked at the host and said apologetically, "I'm sorry for the trouble. As long as you are all right, then, the program. Let's just continue, I am fine." In the end, Muru sang the song again. This time, her tone was normal, much lower than before. Xian was sitting in the VIP seat nearby. She looked at Muru confusedly. Xian vaguely felt that Muru seemed unable to sing the high-pitched part just now. Did she deliberately over her own feet to avoid the embarrassment? However, Xian was not interested in this. After Muru finished her song in an orderly manner, there was a warm round of applause from the audience, including the three middle-aged men who were acting as judges. They were all nodding frivolously with praising expressions. "Not bad, not bad, very good." The host stepped forward and said, "Muru, please go to the rest area and relax. The next performer is Xian, let's welcome her." Xian stepped to the center of the stage. She was not dressed as luxuriously today. Instead, she was dressed in a type of hip-hop style. She wore light blue jeans and a pair of sneakers. The pants wrapped her slender legs and revealed her fascinating curves. But the relatively loose red sweater on her upper body made the males present a little anxious because it covered up everything they wanted to see. Normally speaking, given Xian's good looks, it should not have been difficult for her to make a comeback. She was once a popular star, and people still had an impression of her. Besides, everyone liked beauties. Xian fully met the standard requirements. If the company was willing to support her, it would be much easier for her to make a comeback. Unfortunately, Xian chose to return to the Royal Entertainment Company. She met Meiki, who had bad feelings towards her, and Li Cheng, who had ill intentions. It's easy to imagine how difficult it would be with Li Cheng, the son of a board member, getting in the way. Xian, however, didn't know that Li Cheng had evil intentions towards her. At this point, she walked to the center of the stage, picked up the familiar microphone, and whispered, "Love in a fallen city for all of." Before she could finish speaking, a rude voice was heard. "Wait a moment." Xian turned back and saw the fat judge with thick lips. He frowned and said, "We don't want to listen to old songs. Didn't you recently release a new album? Please choose a new song, thank you." "Huh?" The whole audience looked at him together. In normal times, guests sang whatever songs they wanted. They could choose their song at will. Why were they placing a restriction on Xian? Zif was standing at the backstage gate, and she was very angry. She was already sick of the guy's behavior and even wanted to go up on stage and punch him in his fat pig head. Xian's expression was still very cold and calm. She looked at the speaker and said nothing. From the eyes of the three judges, Xian saw a trace of gloating. She vaguely felt that today's program would not be that simple. Feeling the awkward silence, the host quickly said, "The judge's words make sense. We are already familiar with Love in a Fallen City. I guess everyone here has heard this song many times. It is a very wonderful song. Singing a new song is also a good choice. Xian, why don't you choose a new song for us? I have listened to your new album and it is also pretty good." When Xian heard these words, there was still no change in her expression, but she took a deep breath secretly. She turned her eyes away from the three judges, whom she had never heard of, and faced towards the nearly 100 audience members. They were the people she wanted to perform for. In Xian's heart, fans were far more important than some so-called judges who were hypocritical and only trying to make things complicated. She compressed her emotions, gently opened her mouth, and coldly said, "Then I will sing a new song, How Warm It Is for Everyone." At this time, the host took the lead and clapped. The audience also followed and clapped for some reason. The accompaniment immediately began to play and the audience listened carefully to the unfamiliar melody. It was a comparatively decent song in Xian's lackluster album. The song was bland and ordinary. Thanks to Xian's heavenly voice, it sounded a little better. However, poor quality songs were still poor quality songs after all. It would not be as melodious as a high quality song. As Muru stood nearby, listening to Xian's sweet voice, a trace of jealousy could be seen in her eyes again. It was unfair. Why did Xian have such a beautiful voice? She started her career with a beautiful voice and some excellent songs. Within only 2 years, she became popular, then expanded to the movie and TV industry. She was just like a daughter of heaven, surrounded by endless acting opportunities. She even acted in several movies with high box office ratings. Of course, Muru was not the only person jealous of Xian. Many people in the entertainment industry were also quite envious of her. But now, no matter how famous she was before, wasn't she just a third-rate singer now? Although Muru was envious, she was very happy at the same time. Finally, after Xian finished the song, the host and Muru stepped back onto the stage. After they sat down, the host looked at the three judges with a smile and said, "It's time for our music judges to give their comments. Okay, let me talk about Muru first." The thin man on the left side picked up the microphone and spoke in a very serious tone. Muru showed wonderful rhythm control, very outstanding skills in mood progress, and did well in her transition between true and false sounds. It can be said that this song thoroughly displayed her skills as a singer. But Xian's song, how do I say this, somewhat disappointed me. In terms of rhythm, timbre, treble, and bass, I didn't hear anything impressive, and it didn't reflect Xian's singing ability at all. The first sentence gave me a feeling of dullness, and the treble part didn't impress me at all. This is the worst song I have ever listened to during the program this whole year. Those words, although there was no foul language in them, sounded even more uncomfortable than actually cursing. He evaluated Xian's singing as useless. At this time, the host's expression was a little embarrassed, but Muru was very happy, with her eyes even full of derision. but she pretended to look at Xian with a complex expression of confusion and question. It seemed she was pitying Xian. Xian still showed a protective and cold look, but she had already begun to increase her rate of breathing. Her heart was not calm at all, and she was even a little angry. After the thin man gave his review, he indicated that it was time for the fat judge, who was sitting in the middle, to give an evaluation. The fat judge picked up the microphone, coughed softly, and said, "There is no doubt that Miuru's song is a popular song at the moment. From the enthusiasm of the audience, we can tell that she is good at various singing skills. It's a great improvement over the last program and worthy of praise." After these words, he looked at Xian. From his look, Xian already knew he would not say anything good. The judge curled his thick lips, shook his head, sighed, and said, "Xian's song, with all due respect, was a terrible song. It gives me the feeling of a tone-deaf person yelling at KTV. It has no musical appreciation at all. It's a joke. Xian, if you want to come back to the entertainment circle, you definitely won't succeed with such an attitude. People are not fools, they can tell good from bad. Facts have proven this, and it makes sense that your album was completely unprofitable. Okay, that's all." The fat man then leaned back on the sofa, raised his thick palm and motioned towards the middle-aged man on the right. At that time, the audience was in an uproar. They were all locked in a hot debate. A small number of them agreed with the judge's words because Xian's song was indeed unsatisfactory, but there were also some fans of Xian, and they felt that the judge's words were too much. Even if it was not a pleasant song, the fault was on the song itself, not on Xian. Xian didn't deserve such an evaluation since she had such a heavenly voice. At that time, Miuru's eyes were already full of pride. The host was very embarrassed and did not know what to say or do. Xian, however, was sitting on one side, clenching her fists with her nails almost digging into her palms. However, she could not feel the pain at all. Her look was completely depressed. People could feel her anger from the cold look in her eyes. Chapter 199, Fighting Back Furiously. Even Xian was so angry, not to mention Zif, who was standing at the stage door, her eyes red, like a mad cow. She almost rushed onto the stage as she desperately tried to hold back her indignation and forced herself to resist the impulse. Miuru's song is really classic and very good. The last middle-aged judge gave a simple praise to Miuru first and then looked at Xian and sighed softly. Ah, swish. Xian couldn't bear any more, so she stood up directly and coldly said, "No need, it is easy to find a stick to beat an injured dog." When Xian opened her mouth, the three judges were stunned for a moment. This was the first time that a star dared to talk back. Their faces flashed with unhappiness. Amiya. When the fat man was about to scold Xian, a person rushed in from the backstage frantically. Naturally, it was Zif. When she saw Xian stand up and speak, she could no longer contain her anger, so she walked towards Xian with vigorous strides and a cold look. She stared at the fat man who was about to speak, and coldly said, "Shut up, you fat pig. Who do you think you are? You are like a big maggot living in a shithole. You're just an ugly bastard with a cruel heart. Who the fuck do you think you are, evaluating others? Why don't you take a look at yourself first? Oh, no, even if you look at yourself in the mirror, you would probably only see a pig, gross and disgusting. You. The fat guy was shivering and speechless. He was totally dumbfounded. He knew how to comment about music, but when it came to cursing, he was not even close to being Zif's match. Who are you? What do you think you are doing? Do you even have any courtesy? The thin man on the left stood up and asked, "Do you know where this is? Who cares about where this fucking place is? Where the fuck did bastards like you come from? Why is your mouth spewing so much shit? The three of you are really birds of the same feather. I haven't even spoken to you yet and you stand up voluntarily. I have endured listening to you bitch for this whole time." Zif stared at the thin man and said, "You nobodies dared to come out and pretend to be musicians? Look at your sharp-tongued monkey face. What is it that disappointed you? Tell me. Do you understand anything about music? The first line of lyrics already made you feel bored. Why don't you go to hell? You're really an unprecedented motherfucker. At this time, Zif had become casual. She directly looked at the middle-aged man with a crew cut and said, "And you, don't think that you have nothing to do with it. I think the three of you are all wearing the same pair of pants. What the fuck are you doing with a sighing face, huh? Are you trying to act sympathetic, you hypocrite? Where were your beady little eyes staring at the whole time? Look at yourself, a terrible wolf, a dirty old man." After Zuf finished cursing at the last person, her eyes scanned the three people. Their faces had become livid with anger and they were trembling, but they failed to say a word. However, Zif hadn't finished, so she continued. "You three really think you are important? Do you think you are excellent? I have never even heard of your names. Am I ignorant? What songs have you sung before? Or did you perhaps write some classic songs? Are there any? Naturally, since you are sitting here, there must be some, right? Then I'll go back and look for it earnestly in the garbage music library. Maybe I can dig out many of your songs. Ha ha, what a joke. Why don't you talk now? Are you dumb? Look at you ugly bastards. Disgusting." After saying all those words without a beak, Zif breathed rapidly. The host nearby was stunned. She widened her eyes and sat in her chair. Her mind was empty and she didn't know what to say. However, the audience was very excited. They didn't expect to see such a dramatic scene here today. The judges were lashed out at and became stunned by guest singer's words. This was the first time something like this had happened. Most people originally thought the three judges were a bit excessive. Now, after the judges had been cursed out like this, they felt it was getting very interesting. However, there were also a few people who sympathized with the judges. They were cursed out so fiercely. Look at their expressions, like they have eaten shit. There really are mountains beyond mountains. In my opinion, they deserve this. They evaluated a guest singer to be nothing on the program. How could they do that? This girl has an upfront character. I like her bluntness. The audience whispered, and most of them were somewhat standing on Xian's side. Xian and Zuf were not free of blame, and it did have something to do with Xian's beauty, but they were just trying to put themselves in her position. If they were standing on the stage and had been scolded like this by the judges, some of them might even fight back directly. At this moment, when Zif stopped talking, Muru returned to reality. Her eyes narrowed slightly and she showed a complicated look. She looked at Xian and bitterly said, "Sister Xian, please don't be so impulsive." Although the evaluation of the judges, "Really, you're going to try and pretend to be a good person?" Zif gave her a sideways glance and said, "I didn't go after you, so you should have just sat there. It's true you are very popular now, but you are putting on airs too early, aren't you? Wearing employee clothes while having a servant attend to you to drink water. We don't agree with this practice of yours. Don't pretend to be our friends. Why didn't you do this earlier? Didn't you see us backstage and just sit there without saying hello as if your butt was too heavy?" Sister Xian, it's really funny to hear those words coming out of your mouth. The words directly stabbed into Muru's heart, causing her face to turn red. "Unreasonable," Muru said resentfully and turned to face away from Zif. "Enough, Fei-Fi." Xian pulled Zif's arm back, but her face was still cold. She glanced at the judges and coldly said, "The song was for my fans, not for the judges." Unreasonable comments have already explained the problem. We don't need a program like this. Let's go. When she finished speaking, Xian took the lead and headed backstage. Zif glared at the three judges and turned to leave. As the two just entered the backstage, the fat man suddenly stood up with an angry face and shouted out loudly, "Who are they? Do they have any courtesy?" Unsatisfied with a few comments, "Who do they think they are? How shameful. A singer with such an attitude doesn't deserve to be a star." The emaciated man shouted angrily, I will definitely inform the director and suggest that people with such bad attitudes be banned. A has-been singer, where does her temper come from? Who is she? Was there anything wrong with our comments? Was the program recorded until the very end? It must be distributed to all the people in the nation. People should see her abominable face. The flat-headed middle-aged man said coldly. Their words, however, made the audience scoff at them. People didn't completely agree with Xian, but now they saw how ugly these judges were. Xian was gone and they were still swearing at her, which made the people feel disgusted. This caused the audience to discuss things even louder. The host looked at the scene and quickly said, "That's all for today's program." With that, the program ended in discord. Xian and Zuf directly left the TV station with vigorous strides. Zuf was silent. As they walked to the door, Zuf took out a pair of sunglasses from her bag and handed them to Xian. At the same time, she said, "Sister Yan, don't be angry with those people, it's not worth it. Xian took the sunglasses and put them on. Although her expression was very cold and calm, Zuf still heard some grievances in her voice. Zuf ground her teeth secretly and thought those people were really cruel. Zuf called a taxi and they got in it. Once they returned to the hotel, Xian entered the bedroom alone. Ah! Zuf sighed deeply, leaning against the sofa and grabbing her hair. Xian sat alone in the bedroom and took off her sunglasses. At this moment, her cold look disappeared, leaving behind a face full of grievance and sadness. Why? Xian's shoulder twitched slightly, her eyes were red and her long eyelashes were trembling. Her thin lips were closed and her willowy eyebrows also showed her sadness. The mist grew stronger in her eyes and gradually turned into 2 lines of clear tears, sliding down her delicate cheeks. The delicate and touching appearance would make anyone in front of her feel sad for her. She was like a confused and grieving little girl. After a moment, Xian reached out her white palm, wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes, took out her cell phone, and dialed Zhang Han's number. At this point, she was eager to listen to the voices of Meng Meng and Zhang Han. It wasn't long until the phone connected. Zhang Han. Xian opened her mouth as always, but this time her tone was slightly sad. What's wrong? Zhang Han widened his eyes when he heard Xian's voice. He did not answer like he would usually. I'm fine, Xian said in a low voice, as her eyes grew slightly red again. Was there a blind fool who would believe something wasn't troubling her? She was obviously grieving. Zhang Han wrinkled his brow and began to think. He understood that Xian must have run into some trouble. Zhang Han hesitated a moment, then said with a smile. Did someone bully you? Tell your husband. I'll beat them. No one bullied. Xian was suddenly stunned. What did he just say? He said he was my husband? I haven't even answered him yet. Xian's eyes gradually widened and the tears in her beautiful eyes stopped at this moment. Because of those words, Xian was a little puzzled. She was a little paranoid and the words dissipated half of her grievances. What are you talking about? Xian's face became flushed and there was a trace of nervousness in her tone. She was not ready yet and hadn't answered him. How could he say he was her husband? Wasn't this too pushy? Aha, I said. Someone bullied you? Do you want your husband? Me to help you out? Zhang Han smiled gently and deliberately stretched his voice. Chapter 200, I'm here for you. Although Zhang Han showed no concern for mundane affairs at ordinary times and always looked like he cared about nothing but Meng Meng, that didn't mean he was a block of wood. He knew that Xian had a fiery heart under her cold and cheerless appearance. Xian was undoubtedly very beautiful and everyone would be impressed by her stunning face. Although Zhang Han didn't care about Xian at first, he also admitted that Xian was really beautiful. Zhang Han only cared about his little princess at first. However, after dealing with the living issues surrounding Meng Meng, he suddenly realized that Xian had gradually entered his heart unwittingly. It might be due to her beautiful appearance, her personality, and other factors, but the most important reason was that she was Meng Meng's mother. Zhang Han realized that he had a crush on Xian, and her lithe and graceful figure often flashed across his mind from time to time. At this moment, when he heard Xian sniffling, his first thought was to comfort her, so he said those words. The effect was obvious. Xian's tone showed that she had been distracted by Zhang Han. As long as she stopped thinking about those things, her mood would naturally improve. At this point, Xian was a little shy as she smirked slightly and snorted. "You can only say nice things, we can't be the same as others if they don't get off the line." "Oh, right, Zhang Han laughed. "What is that saying? Even if you are bitten by a dog, you can't bite the dog back, right? That seems to be the meaning," Xian said with a lovely and bemused voice. Her mind was slightly dazed at the moment, and her expression looked very lovely, but Zhang Han wasn't around to see it. But Zhang Han wasn't convinced. He knew that Xian's mood had not completely returned to normal, so he continued talking to her. He smiled again and said, "Even though I said that, I don't approve of that way of thinking. My style is that if a dog bites me, I will turn that dog into stew. I will cut it up into tiny pieces, eat it, and then excrete it out in the end." After Zhang Han said this, Little Hai, who was playing with Meng Meng on Zhang Han's side, shivered all over and stopped wagging his tail while looking over with a somewhat puzzled expression. "Oh, my God, the master is so terrible. If I bite him, he will stew me. Hiss, I must be careful." On the other hand, when Xian heard this, she sniggered, she snorted and said, "Vulgar. What is vulgar about this?" Zhang Han said casually, "You are called a goddess by everyone, but your poop still stinks, doesn't it? Stop, you are so disgusting." Xian grinned and said, the loss and injustice in her beautiful eyes had vanished without a trace. Zhang Han and Xian chatted about some relaxing topics for a while, causing the goddess to release a burst of charming laughter. This also made Xian somewhat confused. Why did this block of wood seem to have become smart? Wasn't he a stupid and clumsy father? Now you recognize my beauty? Now you want to flatter me? It's too late. I will not accept it so easily. After Xian's mood completely eased down, Zhang Han began to get down to the business. "Who bullied you today?" "It's really nothing. With Fei Fei here, I can't be bullied. She is very good." Xian's mood had finally calmed down. Now, when she talked about what happened earlier today, she no longer became emotional. Instead, when she remembered the 3 people who had been scolded by Zuf, she was secretly happy. "That's good. Tell Zuf that when she comes back, I will reward her with an exquisite meal with fish." She will be very happy to hear that. "Well, why don't you come back quickly then?" "Not yet. I don't know how to solve this problem one yet. The company will be very dissatisfied. I don't know if I can take part in the show on Shangjing TV, so I'll wait for news." Xian thought for a moment and replied, "There is no need to rush about like this." Zhang Han shook his head helplessly and said, "When you're outside, you don't have to be afraid of anyone. Tell Zif that for those weird people, she can just fight back directly. I will reward her with good wine and good food afterwards. You are the same. If you meet any difficulties, just tell me about it. Now that I'm here, you don't have to deal with everything alone. I'm here for you." Boom. Xian was stunned and the words floated in her mind, "I'm here for you." Her heart gradually softened and became sweet. Was this the feeling of dependence? The feeling of having someone who was concerned about you was so amazing. Is he trying to pursue me? No, Xian, please have a little more sense. He just said a few nice things and you were moved so easily. No, you need to be more reserved. At this time, Xian was feeling sweet and confused. She opened her mouth slightly as her eyes blurred. After coming back to her senses, she snorted softly and said, "I want to talk to my daughter. Please give the phone to Meng Meng." "Okay." Zhang Han smiled and walked towards Meng Meng. The little princess was sitting on the lawn in the pet area. Other than the 2 high powers, there were more than 30 dogs beside her. They were all playing with toys with Meng Meng. Meng Meng, your mama's on the phone. Zhang Han walked over and handed the phone to Meng Meng. Oh. Meng Meng put down the toys and picked up the phone. Then, with a very pleasant voice, she said, Mama, why haven't you come back yet? Meng Meng misses you. Mama missed you too. Give Mama a kiss, Xian said with a smile. Meow. Meng Meng was very clever and gave several kisses. Then she spoke with a soft voice and said, Mama, Papa and I are playing with Dai, Little Hai, and Darjin in that paradise. Meng Meng gave them a lot of toys to play with. Really? Then Mama will play with you when I get back. Okay. Oh, Mama, please come back soon. When you come back, we can take Big Hai Hai and Little Hai Hai to the amusement park. Meng Meng pouted her pink mouth and said, Take them to the amusement park? Xian was slightly bemused and retorted in her mind. That guy is really good at cheating children. Take a gorilla and a dog to the amusement park. How is that possible? We're going to take Big Hai Hai and Little Hai Hai to the amusement park to play together. They haven't been to the amusement park yet. They were so happy to hear that. Papa said we will go there when you come back. Meng Meng said very seriously. Then all right, let's go to the amusement park when Mama returns, Xian said with a smile. Zhang Han, when I come back, if you can't do it, I will make sure to punish you. After chatting with Zhang Han and Meng Meng, Xian's mood gradually improved. After chatting with Meng Meng for more than 10 minutes, Xian hung up the phone. She stepped out of the bedroom and saw Zif leaning against the sofa with a sulky face. All right, Fei Fei, don't get angry with them. Xian walked over and sat next to her on the sofa, then chuckled and said, You already told them they were pig-headed, why are you still angry? I am not angry with them, Zif snorted, then sat up and said indignantly, Shit, I am angry with that old witch, Makey, she just called. Before Zif finished, Xian's cell phone rang. She took a look and noticed it was from Makey. Xian hesitated a moment before picking up the phone. Xian, what the hell is going on with you? Makey said with an angry voice. It's not me, they are the ones who went too far, Xian answered in a bland voice. The truth was that Xian didn't like to contend with others, but it did not mean that she would just stand there and bullied by others, nor did it mean that she was a coward. Do you think you are talented enough that you can do whatever you want? Do you think you can go on this program and leave whenever you want? Why don't you think about the company? Look at your current ratings, they are not even as good as a third-rate star. Do you think you could get on that show without my recommendation? Wake up, you are not as popular as you were a few years ago. Can't you think twice before doing something? Do you know how big of a mess you've made? You have offended Jiang Yuan TV station. Do you still want to continue developing in the entertainment industry? If so, then go to the team and apologize right now. Makey said a series of words. If it was a moment ago, Xian would have been in a bad mood after being criticized like this, but now, Xian wrinkled her willowy eyebrows slightly and said with a very stiff voice, I did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong. Then, is it my fault? What are you trying to say? Do you want to quit? Makey said furiously. When Xian heard Makey's words, she was somewhat disappointed. Makey had been very kind to her a few years ago, but now was returning to Royal Entertainment Company the correct choice? Xian was beginning to doubt it. While holding her mobile phone, she coldly said, I think my attitude has been clearly expressed. After she finished saying that, Xian directly hung up the phone. On the other end of the line, inside Makey's office at the Royal Entertainment Company in Hong Kong, when Makey heard the beeping sound from the mobile phone, she widened her eyes. You actually dared to hang up on me when your wings aren't even strong enough to fly on your own? At this time she was really a little angry. Haha, I like this kind of temper. The more cold and arrogant she is, the more I want to conquer her. Li Cheng was sitting on the visitor's sofa and said with a meaningful smile. Her attitude is really determined, but she seems to throw the handle after the blade. Did we suppress her too much? If we fall out with her? Makey said slowly. Fallout, what a joke. Li Cheng's eyes narrowed, then he sneered and said, don't forget that she signed a 3-year contract with us. Even if she wanted to leave, she couldn't afford the 300 million in penalties. The drama is just beginning. Call her later when she calms down and comfort her a little. When she arrives in Shangjing with high spirits, we will give her an even heavier blow. After she realizes the reality, I think she will realize the importance of connections. I am looking forward to the day when she begs me for assistance. Ha ha. Then, I will give her a call. Maki rolled her eyes at Li Cheng as she laughingly picked up the phone and dialed Ziyan's number again. Hey, Ziyan, I was too impulsive when I spoke to you earlier. As you know, getting on a program is not easy now. I understand what happened now. What they said was really a bit too much. Forget it this time. Adjust your mood and do a good job on the Shangjing program in a few days. Well, good luck. Elder System will wait to hear good news from you.